Shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom. Nice to have you with us. This is going to be a very special Devar Torah this morning because we have an invited guest. We have Eliana Light from Durham, North Carolina, currently visiting in Seattle. And Eliana, we've invited you to talk about prayer and kavanah this morning. I want to thank Sharon Diamondstein for connecting me up with you. So Eliana, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to do this work, please.
Well, first, thank you so much, Rabbi and TJC, for having me. Really happy to be here in this virtual capacity. I am a Jewish educator, musician, songwriter, song leader, ritual leader, and it started back when I was a kid. My father was a rabbi, my mom was a Jewish educator. I always had a love and an affinity for Jewish ritual and prayer, mostly because I was somewhat of a diva child and really liked performing. Bima, of course, means stage in Hebrew. So when I was up on the bima, I got to be my shiny performing self. And it was only until later that I also connected that to the spiritual, that I was feeling that music and prayer has the ability to connect people and raise them up. So as I got older, I began exploring that more. I've been writing songs since I was able to talk, basically, often about Jewish subjects. And about 10 years ago, I realized that song leader was a job that combined all of my different loves of education and facilitation and performance, and decided I wanted to do that with the rest of my life. And now I get to do so. Pre-COVID, I was traveling to different communities. Now I do a lot of this over Zoom, leading prayer and music over Zoom, and I feel very lucky to do the work that I do.
So I said you're from North Carolina, but I'm much more interested in the fact that you're in Seattle at the moment, because I'm a coffee lover, and Seattle is one of the coffee capitals of the universe. You have any connections to coffee? Like coffee? Been drinking coffee in Seattle?
I'll say that I'm one of those people that likes the flavor of coffee in small doses. Caffeine gives me the shakes, so I can't have like too much. The friends I'm staying with here have made really good coffee in the morning, and I'll take a little bit of it and put it with some ice and this much oat milk, and that's perfect. That's
Great.
Perfect for me. You'd probably have way more fun around here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back to Seattle. So let's turn to the serious side of your expertise a little bit. Tell us, what is kavanah, and what's a way that you might be teaching it to someone?
You know, you say that it's serious, but I think it's also playful. I think prayer and spirituality, so much of it involves our playfulness and our imagination, and opening up to the possibility that there's something more than what we can only see with our eyes or perceive through our senses. And I think that's part of what kavanah is. Kavanah, at least from what I remember, comes from the word kivun, where it shares a root, and that means direction or aim. Like when you're using a bow and arrow, kivun is the direction that you want your arrow to go. And a kavanah is basically setting a direction for where you want your prayers to go, or an intention. In this world where there's so much taking up our mental space, it's good to stop before prayer, take a breath, and maybe think, what am I doing here? What do I want to happen? What is the purpose or goal of me being here? So when we say we're doing a kavanah for a prayer, what the prayer leader is doing is giving a little sprinkle of intention. There's so much within each piece of liturgy that we could be thinking about. Here is one aim, one direction, one way to focus your heart. So you can focus in that way. It's a gentle suggestion, but it can help, since there are so many things dividing our attention in this world. You don't always have to have kavanah to be able to pray, but it helps, I think, especially if you don't think you need it. If you go into services and you're feeling like you've had a rough day, or all those human things that happen, taking a breath and saying, you know, for the next hour, my kavanah is to be present, or my kavanah is to turn my phone off, or my kavanah is to open my heart to the possibility of something more. It can be helpful because you can't hit the target unless you know what you're aiming at.
Great, thank you. So the most important target in Jewish liturgy in every service probably is the Shema. So I wondered if you talk a little bit about maybe what the Shema means to you and share with us a kavanah, how to get ready to recite the Shema.
Beautiful. I love the Shema. And there's so many different facets I could talk about, but I think a main thing to focus on with any piece of liturgy is the translation. Now, I grew up with a very particular translation of the Shema, and if you have, you can maybe even say it along with me in your mind or out loud. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And I kind of took that for granted a really long time until I was an adult and started digging deeper into what each of those words meant, and it unlocked a new meaning for me. Shema, listen up, pay attention, focus in. This is already calling us into kavanah, calling us to notice. Yisrael, this name given to Jacob after he wrestles with the divine angel. Yisrael meaning one who wrestles or struggles with God. So listen up, God wrestlers, or listen up, people of Israel. Yod He Vav He Eloheinu. Notice how I didn't say Adonai, because Yod He Vav He and Adonai, at least to me, are not synonymous. Yod He Vav He, the holy tetragrammaton that we cannot pronounce, shares a root with lihiot. It's something about being. It's something about that which is. In Hebrew, the only thing that really is God. You know, if I was going to say, I am small, I would say anik tana, which would be I small. There's no real am in the grammar. The only thing that is the Holy One. Eloheinu is what we put above ourselves. So listen up, people of Israel. Being, all that is, this ineffable quality of mystery is what we put above ourselves. Yod He Vav He, that thing, that quality, that isness, that being, that mystery, echad, is one, is all that there is. To me, the Shema is a call for internal pluralism and external pluralism. What you call Yod He Vav He, that's what it is. That's God. What you call Yod He Vav He is one. All of the different names, all of the different qualities that we ascribe to the Holy One, and there are over 130 plus names in traditional Judaism for God, we're all pointing at the same thing. So what I might ask someone as they prepare for the Shema today is, how are you calling out to the Holy One today? What is a name that you want to use for God? Maybe it's Adonai, but maybe it's not. Maybe you're relating to that which is greater than yourself in the universe as a spirit, or as a loving parent, or as the wind through the trees. However it might be, that is where you can direct it. And you can know that all of those names are going to the same place. It's all one.
So that's very theological. And you said playful. That sounds to me very serious. So how would you make that playful?
I think imagination is certainly a part of it. When we talk about names for God, we're not talking about something that's happening in the literal realm. You know, we say Adonai Tsuri, God is my rock. We're not talking about a literal rock, right? We're saying that we are experiencing the Holy One as stability, right? As a force. When I talk about this with kids, we have to kind of open up our imagination, know that we're talking in poetic language. And there's so much playful poetic language in the Siddur. Like when we talk about the trees dancing, when we talk about the mountains skipping like lambs, it's all of this kind of open, playful imagery. So how do we want to relate to the Holy One? And maybe we want to take it out of the realm of names and we want to just use feeling. So I might ask someone, first, let's quiet ourselves. Let's take a moment and feel. And maybe that leads to understanding. Ah, shma. That's kind of a sounding way, a playful way to get us into the space of the Shema.
Nice. I like that. Didn't hear that. Thank you. So I'm particularly intrigued by the response to the Shema, Baruch Shem Kavod. I wondered if you had thoughts about that kind of congregational response or that silent response, and how you see that in prayer.
I do have a lot of thoughts about it. So many so that there's actually a song on my latest album that is an amalgamation of midrashim on this line. It's one of the last tracks on the album. It's called The Name, if you want to look it up. But I was intrigued by this because there's like the technical reason why the Shema is said aloud and Baruch Shem is said silently. And then there's all these fantastical midrashic reasons, which is something I also love. There's the literal and there's also the poetic and the more spiritual. The literal reason I found is that the Shema and the Baruch Shem Kavod were both part of the temple service, but since the Shema was part of the Torah and Baruch Shem was not, one was said aloud, one was quietly. I also like the idea that even when we do things on a communal scale, there's a piece of it that's also for you. One is said outwards and one is said inwards, going in both directions. The midrashim are really beautiful. One of them, there are a couple, but I'll just mention one now, which is that Moses goes up the mountain and he hears the angels singing so beautifully. What are they singing? Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. And he said, this is such a beautiful song. I'm gonna take it from them and bring it to the people down below. And so he comes down the mountain and he teaches it to all the people of Israel, but he says, don't sing it too loudly. We don't want the angels to get upset that we stole their song. Interestingly, this midrash says, is why we say Baruch Shem Kavod out loud only on one day a year. And which day is that? Yom Kippur, right? Because on Yom Kippur, we are like angels. Our slates are clean. We've made no mistakes. We're wearing white. We're not eating or drinking. And because on that one day, we get to be like the angels, we get to say Baruch Shem Kavod out loud. So when we whisper it, it's also a reminder to ourselves of our humanness, our beautiful, messy, wonderful humanness.
So do you have advice for us when we have difficulty in prayer, and we've had a hard day, a bad week, and we really want to pray and we really want to open ourselves up, but we can't, we're stuck? What would you say to us?
I think first I'd say that that's totally normal and understandable because prayer is really challenging. And I don't know if we talk about that enough. Prayer is one of those things we often do as Jews and we take it for granted, but it is hard. We're being asked to say these words of our ancients as if they are our own. So the first thing I would say that is, that's not actually what we're asking you to do. We have been gifted with these words of our ancestors. And sometimes I like to think of it as, what is the Siddur telling me today? What are my ancestors trying to tell me through the words of the liturgy? Not I have to agree with or believe everything that I'm saying, but if I can read through and find one word or one phrase that feels good to me, that I can turn over and over in my mind that might have something to teach me, that could be my kavanah for the service. Or maybe the words are too much today, and all I want to do is be able to sit and breathe and open myself up and feel grounded. That's one thing we can do. Picking a kavanah that's reasonable can be very helpful, right? Saying, my kavanah today is just to be here in support of this community member who is saying Kaddish, or this community member who is saying the Misha Berach for someone who is sick. Showing up for other people can be really beautiful in a space of prayer because it kind of takes the spotlight off of you. And we know that when we're able to focus on helping others, it actually does help open something up inside of us.
So one of the things that you just sort of made me spontaneously think of, because you said in the presence of others, this year in particular, we have not been in the presence of others when we've been davening. So I wonder, under pandemic conditions during this year of COVID, what advice might you have us that's COVID specific or pandemic specific that might help us with our prayer experiences?
So I do think that even if we're praying over Zoom, even if everyone is watching something from their homes, we're still in the presence of others. We're just not in the physical presence of others. It just takes longer to remember that. if you are in a situation where you're praying at home, that's also one of the things that's challenging, because you're in your home where things are calling out for your attention. So again, setting those reasonable expectations can be really helpful. Saying, I'm going to set a timer on my phone for 15 minutes. For the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to be here with my community and as much as I can. And then if there are other things that happen, there are kids, there are things that need to be done, that's totally normal and understandable. One of the good things and the challenging things about praying online is it lets people be a part of it in whatever capacity they can. I've done it too. I've listened to a Friday night service while I'm cooking dinner, but I'm singing along. I'm in and out of it. Let yourself be in and out of it, but also see if you can focus for at least a couple of minutes just on being present and not thinking about the to-do list. That's what I think prayer can help us do, is give us that deep breath, that space to just be, to just exist, to not have to think about what happened in the past or what's happening in the future, and to bring some care and concern to something that is bigger than ourselves in that moment.
Thank you. That was beautiful, wonderful. So I have my last question. We're going to kind of come to a conclusion. And if you have any final thoughts, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a twist, since you mentioned all of your music, and I've watched some of your videos and they're really beautiful. Feel free to send us a link and we'll add it to the end of this. So you have any final thoughts? Do you want to share a song with us, or a melody, or a nigun, or something? So that, what's our takeaway from this that you want to give us?
Well, thank you. First, thank you so much. I think, yeah, that is a good takeaway, that we get so caught up in the words that we often forget that the divine is something that is primarily experienced. It's something that we feel out in the world or in ourselves in a moment of quiet, or when looking at something breathtakingly beautiful, or in moments of fear when we need something larger than ourselves, or in moments of great togetherness. God is something that we feel. And then we write and read all of these words about it. And sometimes the words can help us express what we're feeling, and sometimes the words get in the way. In the Kaddish, we say that the name of the Holy One is La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, beyond all blessing and song. So I'll sing a line of a song that I wrote with that phrase in it. And then, Rabbi, I'll send you a video, and maybe you can include it in this or share it with people as well, just to get us thinking about how God is beyond all blessing and song, and yet we bless and sing anyway, because there's something inside of us that desires to call out. So we'll just end with this little melody. Le'ela, 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 min kol birchata v'shirata.
Well, thank you, Eliana Light. It's been a privilege to have you here and to bring all of your strengths and your wisdom and your talent to the attention of others. And may all of your prayers and may all of our prayers be answered. Dear friends, Shabbat Shalom. This has been Rabbi Schoenberg at the Jewish Center in Princeton, wishing you all a delightful Shabbat, and in particular, when you sit around the Friday night table tonight, sing one of Eliana's Nikunim. Shabbat Shalom, friends. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for being with us.